Welcome to Thought Provoked. This is the space where we really dive into ideas that challenge and hopefully inspire. I'm Claire.
And I'm Max. It's great to be here exploring concepts that, really shape how we live. We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Dealing with people who just leave you feeling completely drained, maybe frustrated, or just exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
So over the next little while, we're going to dive into why certain interactions can feel so tough and, more importantly, explore some really practical, wisdom-based ways you can navigate them. Strategies to help protect your own peace of mind.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea of, difficult people. We're talking about those individuals who just seem to suck the life out of you, or maybe your room.
Absolutely. It often feels like you need to put up some kind of mental shield just to interact with them sometimes.
Right. And where do we even start with understanding this?
Well, a really foundational idea actually goes way back to thinkers like Epictetus, is that it's less about what they do and more about our judgment of what they do, how we interpret their actions. That's where the real sting often comes from.
That's interesting. So it's our reaction that gives it power.
In large part, yes. Their behavior is just behavior until we assign meaning and emotion to it.
Okay. So how do we spot these patterns then? What are some warning signs that someone might be testing our inner defenses, let's say?
Well, there are definitely clues. One big one is constant criticism. And that can be overt, direct insults.
Right.
Or it can be more subtle. Those backhanded compliments or undermining comments that just leave you feeling kind of deflated.
Yeah, I know the type. What else?
Deceptive strategies are another thing to watch for, like excessive flattery just to get something. Or maybe using guilt trips to manipulate you. Sometimes even veiled threats to, maintain control over a situation or a person.
Guilt trips. Ugh.
Yeah. And often these individuals seem to really thrive on negativity. They focus on problems, they complain a lot, and they almost seem to enjoy pulling others down into that pessimistic space with them.
It really sounds like there are different flavors of this difficult behavior. Can we categorize them a bit?
We can try. It's not always neat boxes, but you often see certain archetypes. For instance, there's the narcissist.
Okay.
Someone who has this constant, deep need for admiration and validation. They can be incredibly charming at first, but you quickly realize the interactions are completely one-sided. It's all about them. And it leaves you feeling, emotionally drained.
Right, been there.
Then you have, say, the gossip. Or maybe the person who just loves stirring up social turmoil. They thrive on rumors, creating friction, maybe even enjoy watching the fallout.
Drama seekers.
Exactly. And another common one is what people often call the energy vampire.
Bye.
These are the people you interact with, and afterwards you just feel wiped out, cognitively fatigued, emotionally exhausted, like they literally drained your battery.
Yeah. Knowing these types helps frame it. So, okay, the crucial part. What can we actually do about it? What are the strategies?
Right. Let's get practical. The absolute foundation, I think, is building and maintaining strong personal boundaries.
Boundaries.
Think of them like the walls around your kingdom, protecting your inner peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote a lot about self-governance, right? And boundaries are key to governing your own emotional territory. Stoicism really emphasizes using reason and self-control to decide what you will and won't accept from others.
So it's about drawing a line. How do we actually do that effectively? What are the steps?
First step is self-awareness. You need to identify the specific behaviors that actually drain your energy or violate your sense of respect. Is it the constant negativity? Is it manipulative comments? Is it someone giving you advice you never asked for?
Okay, so nail down the specifics.
Exactly. Once you're clear on what the issue is, the next step is communication. You need to state your boundary clearly, calmly, and concisely. Using I statements is really helpful here.
Can you give an example?
Sure. So instead of saying, "You always complain and bring me down," which is accusatory, you could say, "I find it difficult to stay positive when the conversation focuses heavily on negativity. I'd prefer if we could talk about other things." Or, "I feel uncomfortable when unsolicited advice is given about my personal life." See the difference?
Yeah, it's focused on your feeling and your need, not just blaming them.
Precisely. It's assertive, not aggressive. You're stating your reality and your limit.
In fears, it's setting it once enough. Or do we need to keep at it?
Oh, definitely keep at it. Setting the boundary is step one, enforcing it is step two, and arguably the harder part.
Right.
If someone crosses that line you've drawn, you need to be prepared to calmly point it out again. Remember what I said about needing space on this topic? Or you might need to limit interaction or even, physically remove yourself from the situation if it keeps happening.
Consistency is key then, like a ruler guarding their borders.
Exactly that analogy. And remember, this isn't about being selfish. It's self-protection. The Stoics weren't about letting others walk all over them. They valued their inner tranquility and focused on their own virtue. Protecting that isn't selfish, it's necessary.
Okay, boundaries are fundamental. What else is in the toolkit?
Another really interesting technique is often called the gray rock method.
Gray rock,
Yeah.
just be boring.
Essentially, yes. Imagine someone who thrives on drama, who needs a big emotional reaction from you, anger, tears, frustration, whatever. They're like an emotional barbarian seeking conflict.
Okay.
The gray rock method, which I believe therapist Paul Fredrickson popularized, is about deliberately making yourself emotionally unresponsive and, frankly, uninteresting to them.
So you don't give them the drama they're looking for.
Exactly. You become like a plain gray rock on the ground. Solid, neutral, unyielding, offering nothing shiny or engaging. Seneca talked about finding contentment within, not needing external fuss or attention. This method taps into that.
How does that look in practice? Like, what would you actually say or do?
Let's say someone insults your work. Instead of defending yourself or getting upset, you might just give a very neutral, factual, brief response. Something like, okay, or that's an interesting perspective, or thanks for sharing your thoughts.
No emotion.
Minimal emotion. You avoid getting drawn into arguments. You sidestep sarcastic jabs or guilt trips. Keep your answers short, factual, maybe even a bit boring. Don't offer up personal information or opinions they can latch onto. You basically disengage from their emotional vortex.
Like refusing to feed the fire.
Precisely. Seneca advised not being easily swayed by hopes or fears. Similarly, don't let their attempts to hook you emotionally work. Stay composed.
Does it always work?
Cool.
Or can it backfire?
It's not a magic wand, for sure. Sometimes a toxic person might actually escalate their behavior initially when they don't get the reaction they expect. They might try harder. That's why consistency is so critical with the gray rock method. If you remain consistently unreactive, the message eventually sinks in. This person isn't a good source of emotional fuel for me. They'll likely move on to find someone else who will react.
Gotcha. Okay, so gray rock for disengagement. What if someone is just really persistent, like they keep pushing the same button, ignoring your boundaries?
Ah, yes. For that kind of relentless pressure or manipulation, there's the broken record technique.
Broken record. Sounds annoying.
It can be for the person trying to manipulate you, but it's effective. It draws on Stoic ideas of reason and perseverance.
Okay, how does it work?
It's simple in concept, but needs patience. You just calmly, firmly, and repeatedly state your position or your boundary using the exact same words or very similar words each time.
Like literally repeating yourself.
Yes. You don't get drawn into defending your position, giving new excuses, or engaging with their arguments about why you should change your mind. Epictetus talked about freedom being the only true good, and that includes the freedom to simply say no and stick to it without endless justification.
So if a coworker keeps bugging me to join a project I've already said no to?
You just repeat calmly, as I mentioned, I'm not able to take that on right now. If they push back with, but why not? Or, just this once, you repeat, I appreciate you asking, but I'm not able to take that on right now.
Wow, okay.
The repetition is key. It's often disconcerting to manipulators because it disrupts their usual script of wearing you down or finding loopholes. It shows you're firm. Think of it like a wave constantly hitting a strong rock.
The rock doesn't move.
Exactly. The wave eventually dissipates. And it's not about being aggressive or confrontational. It's about calm, persistent focus on your stated boundary using reason and logic, which is very Stoic.
Okay, that makes sense for persistence. But what about those direct attempts to just get under your skin? The baiting.
Right, the deliberate provocations. That's where the idea of don't take the bait comes in. Think of it like a skilled angler. Using negative comments, cynical remarks, veiled insults, or maybe guilt trips as the bait, designed specifically to hook an emotional reaction from you.
And we need to avoid biting.
This ties into Stoic indifference. Now, that doesn't mean apathy, like Epictetus pointed out. It's not about not feeling anything. It's about emotional detachment from the negative judgments and knee-jerk reactions that cloud our reason.
So detach from the hook.
Yes. Step one is recognizing the bait for what it is. See the strategy behind the cynical remark or the guilt trip. They're trying to make me feel defensive here.
Awareness first.
Always. Once you see the hook, you can make a conscious choice not to react in the way they expect or desire. Choose not to respond with anger, annoyance, defensiveness.
So it's an active choice in that moment.
It really is. You
Yeah.
see the bait, you feel the initial tug perhaps, but you consciously decide, nope, not biting, by refusing to provide that emotional reaction.
You take away their power.
Exactly. You starve their drama llama. Their negative remarks kind of fall flat because you're not fueling them. Remember, Stoicism isn't about suppressing all emotion. It encourages positive ones like joy and connection, but about detaching from those negative, often irrational, emotional responses triggered by things outside our control, like someone else's attempt to provoke us.
Okay, don't take the bait. Makes sense. But sometimes people just seem to want to argue, like they enjoy the fight itself. What then?
The verbal gladiators. For those who seem to thrive on conflict and debate, sometimes the most powerful response is silence. Planned, strategic silence.
Silence. That feels counterintuitive, like you're giving up.
It can feel that way, but think about it differently. Marcus Aurelius spoke about choosing not to engage in the toxic dance. Silence disrupts the expected rhythm. These individuals expect you to argue back, defend yourself, get angry. That's the dynamic they want.
So silence pulls the rug out from under them.
It can, yeah. It requires real mastery of your own reactions, of course. To sit in silence while someone is trying to provoke you isn't easy, but that stillness can signal true control. They're accepting a reaction, frustration, anger, defensiveness, when they get nothing.
It throws them off.
It often does.
Yeah.
You're denying them the emotional fuel they crave. Imagine, like, a tennis player serving with all their might, but the other side of the court is empty.
The ball just lands.
Oh,
End of rally.
exactly.
Yeah.
Your silence can communicate self-control, a refusal to participate in the negativity, and that you're simply not playing their game. It shows you value your peace more than winning their argument.
So you just stay quiet, even if they keep talking.
It's a planned silence. You assess the situation. Is this just going in circles? Are they just trying to get a rise out of me?
Yeah.
If so, a calm, composed silence can be incredibly effective. Be prepared, though, like with gray rocking, they might escalate initially to try and force a response.
Right. Need to hold firm.
Hold firm. Remember Marcus Aurelius again. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Sometimes being one means choosing not to engage in pointless, toxic arguments. Silence can be that choice.
These are great tools for in the moment. But what about the bigger picture? Dealing with these folks long term can be exhausting, even with good techniques.
Absolutely. And that leads to another crucial strategy: limiting your exposure.
Just avoiding them.
Sometimes, yes, or at least reducing contact. Think of your mental energy like a fortress. Even strong walls can be worn down by constant assault. The Stoics were big on focusing on what you can control. You often can't control another person's toxicity, but you usually can control how much time and energy you spend in their vicinity.
How do we do that practically?
Yeah.
Especially if it's like family or a coworker.
It takes conscious effort. Look for ways to reduce interaction time. Can you politely decline certain invitations? Can you keep conversations shorter and more focused? Can meetings be rescheduled or handled via email? If possible, create physical distance. Maybe sit further away in meetings or choose different times to be in shared spaces.
Excusing yourself respectfully.
Exactly. Remember, prioritizing your well-being isn't rude. It's essential self-preservation. A wise leader protects their resources. But okay, sometimes physical distance isn't really an option, right? Family gatherings, unavoidable work collaborations.
Yeah, and then what?
Then you work on creating emotional distance. This is where that stoic detachment really comes in handy. You can be physically present, but mentally and emotionally disengaged from their negativity. Observe their behavior almost like a detached scientist without letting it hook you emotionally.
Like watching a storm from inside a safe building.
Good analogy. You can also try cognitive reframing. So instead of thinking, ugh, they're being so negative again, try reframing it as an objective observation. They seem to be expressing a lot of dissatisfaction today. It creates a little mental buffer.
Interesting shift in perspective.
It helps. And crucially, consciously focus your energy on the positive things in your life, your goals, your supportive relationships, things you enjoy. Don't let their darkness overshadow your light. Limiting exposure, physically or emotionally, is vital self-care.
That actually brings up another point, having positive relationships to focus on. How important is a support system?
Oh, incredibly important. You could be the most resilient Stoic warrior, but even warriors need allies. Think of your support system as your personal Stoic phalanx, people standing with you, offering strength.
A phalanx, I like that.
Seneca wrote about the importance of living in harmony with nature, and our social nature is part of that. Connecting with virtuous, supportive people is key. When you're dealing with difficult individuals, your support network provides, well, support.
What kind of support helps most?
Several things. Just having someone who will listen without judgment is huge. A safe space to vent or process what happened. They can also offer perspective. Maybe you're questioning yourself after a manipulative interaction, and a good friend can remind you of reality.
Validation.
Yes, and encouragement. Toxic interactions can chip away at your self-worth. Your support system can remind you of your strengths and value. Plus, just being around positive, well-adjusted people acts as a buffer, a counterweight to the negativity. They model healthier ways of being.
So how do we build or strengthen that phalanx?
It takes effort, like tending a garden. Invest quality time in the positive relationships you already have. Nurture them. Actively seek out people who share your values, maybe through hobbies or groups. And critically, be a supportive person for others too. Show gratitude. It's a reciprocal process. A strong support network is a massive asset for resilience.
All these strategies, boundaries, gray rock, limiting exposure, they take energy. They require inner strength. How do we keep our own well topped up?
That's where self-care becomes non-negotiable. Dealing with toxicity is draining. It's like emotional combat sometimes. Self-care is how you replenish your reserves, tend to your emotional wounds, and strengthen your defenses for the next encounter.
It's not just a luxury then.
Absolutely not. For someone navigating difficult relationships, it's essential maintenance. It's a core part of a resilient, Stoic-inspired lifestyle, actually taking responsibility for your own mental well-being.
What does that look like in practice? Bubble baths and candles?
It can, but it's broader than that. It's about intentionally doing things that nourish your mind, body, and spirit. That could be engaging in hobbies that genuinely bring you joy and flow. It could be mindfulness or meditation practices to quiet the mental chatter and detach from negativity.
Getting outside.
Yes, spending time in nature is a great one. It reduces stress, offers perspective. It's also about listening to your body, getting enough sleep, eating nourishing food, taking breaks when you need them, and importantly, setting boundaries around your self-care time. Protecting it.
Protecting time for yourself.
Exactly. It's not selfish, it's strategic. A well-rested, well-nourished mind is far better equipped to handle challenges with calm and clarity. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Okay, so fortify yourself. Now, one of the hardest parts for me, and I think for many people, is not taking the negativity personally.
Yeah.
How do we manage that?
That is tough. But it's vital to remember, often, maybe even most of the time, the negativity coming from a difficult person is a reflection of their inner world, not yours.
It's about them, not me.
Largely, yes. Think of them carrying this, invisible backpack full of their own worries, insecurities, past hurts, frustrations. When they lash out or criticize, they're often just projecting that stuff outward. It spills over.
Like a dark cloud following them around.
Kind of. There's a Stoic concept, prupapia, which involves seeing things preferred or dispreferred based on someone's own judgments. Their negativity often falls into their category of perceived problems or annoyances, driven by their potentially flawed view of the world. It doesn't automatically define your reality or your worth.
So try to see it as their issue spilling out.
Exactly. Understanding that it likely stems from their own unhappiness or unresolved stuff helps create detachment. You can observe it more objectively, perhaps even with a bit of compassion, without internalizing it as a direct, accurate hit on you.
Like a scientist observing behavior.
Yeah. Or, like Epictetus said, it's not events, but our judgment about events that causes distress. If you can judge their outburst as, this person is struggling, rather than, this person is right about me, it changes everything. It protects your inner calm.
Compassion, but not becoming a doormat for their issues.
That's the balance. Acknowledge their likely struggle internally, but maintain your boundaries externally.
It's so tempting sometimes, though, when you see someone struggling like that, to want to help them, to fix them. Is that ever a good idea?
The fixer urge. It often comes from a good place, but trying to fix a toxic person is usually a recipe for frustration and burnout.
Why is that?
Because, again, Stoicism teaches us to focus on what's in our control. our thoughts, our actions, our responses, another person's deep-seated patterns and willingness to change, that's largely outside our control.
It's their responsibility.
Ultimately, yes.
Yeah.
Their behavior, their choices, their healing, that's on them. Pouring your energy into trying to change someone who isn't ready or willing, it's like trying to weed someone else's garden while yours gets overgrown. You just end up depleted.
Like trying to force a plant to grow.
Good analogy.
Yeah.
They need their own sunlight, their own water, their own will to change. We need to accept the limits of our influence. Focus on cultivating your own inner garden, your own tranquility.
So we just give up on them.
Not necessarily give up in a harsh way. You can still offer support, maybe point them towards resources like therapy or helpful books if they seem receptive, but you do it without attachment to the outcome, without making their change your project. Lead by example, live your own resilient, virtuous life, and critically, know when your efforts are futile and draining you, and it's time to redirect that energy.
Which leads to the really tough question. When is it time to just walk away completely?
Recognizing when withdrawal is the necessary, healthiest choice is a really fundamental Stoic act of self-preservation. Sometimes, despite all the strategies, a relationship is just consistently damaging.
That feels like such a drastic step, especially with family or maybe a long-term colleague.
It is difficult. It's often painful. But prioritizing your mental and emotional health is paramount. Seneca had that quote, something like, "The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately." Don't waste your precious present moment, your life energy, trapped in relentlessly unhealthy dynamics.
So it's about accepting you can't control their behavior and choosing your own peace.
Exactly. It's accepting the reality of the situation, accepting what you can't change their behavior, and detaching from the negative emotional fallout. Walking away isn't failure or weakness. It's often an act of profound self-respect and acceptance.
What factors should you weigh up before making that decision?
You'd want to consider, have I genuinely tried other strategies? Is this negativity a consistent, persistent pattern, or just occasional friction? And most importantly, what is the ongoing impact on my well-being, my happiness, my ability to function? Sometimes a gradual withdrawal can ease the transition, if possible.
Taking steps back.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's about creating space away from the toxicity and space for healthier connections and peace in your life. It's a courageous act of self-care.
Even after distancing ourselves or maybe walking away, there can still be lingering stuff, right? Resentment, anger, hurt. How do we deal with that baggage?
That's where forgiveness comes in, but maybe not in the way people usually think about it. Stoic forgiveness isn't necessarily about absolving the other person or saying what they did was okay.
Okay, then what is it about?
It's primarily about freeing yourself. Think of holding on to resentment like carrying a heavy bag of rocks. It doesn't hurt the person who gave you the rocks nearly as much as it hurts you, weighing you down, slowing your progress.
So forgiveness is for our own sake.
Absolutely. It's about accepting what happened is in the past and cannot be changed, accepting things outside our control. It's about acknowledging the hurt, but consciously choosing to release the emotional charge associated with it. Harboring anger or bitterness contaminates your present and clouds your future.
It keeps you tied to them emotionally.
Precisely. It's like letting them live rent-free in your head. Stoicism constantly brings us back to our inner landscape. What we can control are our thoughts, judgments, and actions now. Forgiveness is an action you take now to reclaim your inner peace. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Forgiveness embodies that.
So it doesn't excuse their behavior, but it stops it from continuing to harm us.
Exactly. It breaks the cycle. Resentment is a self-made prison. Forgiveness is unlocking the door. It might involve recognizing the feelings, allowing them, practicing self-compassion for having gone through it, maybe trying to see the situation objectively, and then making that conscious choice. I release this burden for my own well-being. It's a gift you give yourself.
That's a really powerful way to look at it. You know, Ryan Holiday talks about this too, drawing on Marcus Aurelius.
Right. That idea when you encounter difficult people, assholes, as he might put it, to first ask yourself,
All right.
is a world without such people even possible?
Probably not.
Right. So accept their existence without letting it constantly anger or upset you. And then there's that great line, the best revenge is to not be like that.
Don't let their negativity turn you negative.
Exactly. Shrug off rudeness when you can, except you might take some undeserved hits in life. But keep moving. Focus on your own path. Now, that doesn't mean letting yourself be repeatedly exploited.
Right. Boundaries still matter.
Boundaries matter. You adapt your strategy. Like in a boxing match, if your opponent starts cheating, you don't just keep fighting the same way. You adjust, you learn, maybe you become smarter or more skilled because of the challenge. You don't let them degrade you.
Become better for the exchange, not bitter.
That's a great way to put it.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot here. From understanding the dynamics to setting boundaries, using techniques like gray rock or the broken record.
To knowing when silence is best. Limiting exposure, building support, prioritizing self-care, not taking it personally.
Resisting the urge to fix them, knowing when to walk away, and finally the importance of forgiveness for our own peace. It's quite a toolkit.
It really is. And it all comes back to those core Stoic ideas of self-awareness, emotional regulation, focusing on what's truly within our control, and acting with virtue and reason.
So for you listening, here's something to maybe chew on. Think about one interaction you've had recently, maybe this week, that felt, well, draining or frustrating.
That's just one.
Yeah. And consider how applying just one of these perspectives, maybe seeing it less personally, or thinking about a boundary you could set next time. How might that shift things for you? How might it change how you feel or respond in a similar situation in the future?
It's worth reflecting on. These aren't overnight fixes, but gradually integrating these ideas really can make a difference to your peace and resilience.
Absolutely. We really encourage you to mull over these concepts and see how they might fit into your own life.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been great exploring this. Until next time on Thought Provoked.
Take care.